Minding my own business in bed, I was when my phone buzzed suddenly. It was my mom, someone I hadn't heard from in months. And what should she have to say? Not a, "Hey, how are you doing?" No, she bypassed all that and came right to the point. She needed $2,000 for the dorm costs for my stepsister. You do really read correctly. She simply had an immediate need for cash. She never even checked in. Let me now explain why this is such a significant event before you criticize me. This is not any familial circumstance anymore. When my mother married Mark, her new husband, when I was 16, it was obvious he had no interest in me. Mark has 2 children of his own, Noah, 14, and Lily, now 17. They were considered as pure gold from the time they entered the scene. Almost as soon as my mother got married, she began acting as though I had vanished. Although I know mixing families may be challenging, she never even tried to make it work. My grandparents kindly paid me $2,000 as a gift when I graduated from high school. I was delighted. It felt like the first taste of actual freedom I had ever had. Having saved another $2,000 from part-time employment during school, I was sitting reasonably with a little nest fund of $4,000, all ready for college or whatever came next. One day I choose to check my bank account and all of it vanished. Each last nickel. Thinking there had to have been a mistake, I went to see my mom. At that time, she was still a co-owner of my account as I hadn't gotten around to changing it over. She told me she had taken it and looked at me without a trace of guilt. Her intention? Punishment, apparently, was my punishment for not respecting her new spouse and his children, or some other vague crap she threw out. I went crazy. She grabbed the money as though it were nothing, when I had been saving it for college, my future, and I thus packed my bags and moved in with my grandparents, doing the only thing that seemed proper at the time, the only ones that seemed to give what I was going through any thought at all. Furthermore, after that, not really close to my mother, a few years forward and here I am, just graduated, still attempting to organize my life. Then, out of the blue, she calls requesting $2,000 to assist Lily pay her dorm expenses. Lily apparently needs a private room as living with a roommate would prove too challenging. Basically, really? Who at 17 really needs a private dorm room? Whatever happened to simply hanging on like everyone else with a roommate? I told my mother straightforwardly, no way, not happening. After all she went through, I wasn't ready to simply hand over thousands of dollars. And what she said, by chance, no is not something you can say. We are family. Are you really going to help? She seldom asked how I was doing, let alone admit that we hadn't talked in months. Like I was her personal ATM, it was directly to the money chat. I just then and then hung up. More of her guilt-tripping was not something I needed to listen to, but what degree of entitlement is involved? Unreal. The fact is, she has pulled stuff like this before. I could have as well been invisible from the time Mark entered the picture. My mother would go above and beyond for him and his children while I was simply there. Growing up, she was not like this. But the second she married him, it was as though I did not exist. She stopped asking how I was doing, stopped showing up for my school functions, and stopped loving. She neglected even asking me over one Christmas after I'd already moved in with my grandparents. However, guess what? She faxed a card. Hope you are doing well. Mom, love is what it is. Nothing we miss you or sorry for everything, just a basic card. Her priorities were appearances more than they were her actual mothering. She now has the nerve to call out of nowhere, wanting me to cover the dorm of her stepsister, following all she has put through. Not so sure. Not a likelihood. Honestly, it's sort of sad. I owe them nothing. Not after she stole my savings, abandoned me to fend for myself, and gave her new family top priority. I wanted a relationship with her once. I tried to get in touch back then to see whether we might sort things out. Still, every time seemed like chatting with a brick wall. Her new family consumed her such that she had no room for me. She expects me to give out $2,000 like we're close or something now, after years of quiet. Although it's annoying, I suppose I should not be surprised. There are those who never evolve. They merely grab and grab, claiming rights to whatever you have. Still, I have learned my lesson. I'm not that youngster anymore, letting her stroll all over me. I went on, created my own life, and I'm not going to let her shame me into paying for anything. Following that call, I blocked her on everything. And to be honest, it feels like a great weight has been taken off. I cannot live with that kind of negativity in my life. She will find out really fast if she tries to get in touch once I have stopped being polite. After hanging up on my mother, I realized that would be the end of it, just as I had made myself quite clear. Error. A few days later, I'm simply lounging about trying to enjoy my weekend when my phone rings. It is her once more. I nearly missed this occasion as well. What could possibly come out of this that would be practically beneficial? But something caught my attention. Perhaps some small hope that she would have returned and attempted a normal discussion. She did not, with a hint of spoilers. She added, "Listen, I talked to Mark, and we came up with a new arrangement." The way she said it, I could almost see her patting herself on the back, as though she were about to do me a great service. She continued, saying Lily definitely needs a private dorm room since sharing with others would make her uncomfortable. She apparently only deals with shared toilets and roommates. Their great scheme, Lily will share a nice 2-bedroom apartment with her own bathroom. And who would they like to assist with expense coverage? Exactly, me. For the semester, the entire cost would be $3,800. They believe I should pay $1,000 a month to volunteer. Really, though? For a stepsister who hardly remembers me, they are asking me to pay $1,000 a month for a room I will never see. It was so ludicrous. I nearly laughed. I questioned her straightforwardly. Why is this my problem? She plunged into full guilt-tripping mode at that point. She began by saying, "You never gave anything to this family. It's time you give back. You have to correct your errors. Whose mistakes? I have not even treated them in such a manner." Then Mom blasted me with how I had been living off my grandparents, behaving as though I were some sort of freeloader. First of all, my grandparents asked me to remain with them. After all the mess I'd gone through with her, they wanted to help me get on my feet. Though she's little done compared to what she's done for her real family, in her eyes, it's like I owe her for every tiny deed she's ever done for me. She persisted in emphasizing how I owe them for not being part of the family anymore, as though her pushing me out was my fault. She made me feel like I didn't belong, and today she's trying to make me feel bad about leaving that mess behind? Yes, but no thanks. My wrath was boiling at this time, but instead of allowing her to pull me down into this hole of guilt and deception, I asked her one question. When are you planning to pay me back the $4,000 you took from me in high school? The second I said, she flicked out. She began screaming, calling me unappreciative and self-serving. I did everything for you. How do you pay me back? Looking at the past as I toss it? You never even recognized it, I said straightforwardly. You never even apologized for stealing that money. You are the one who owes anything here. Yet she was not listening. She only kept screaming about how I had abandoned the family and how my inaction was damaging Lily's future. Apparently, sending her to a public college with standard dorms would destroy her entire life. Sure, Lily will be just fine. The fact is, she was demanding it, not about seeking help. No, please, or could you help us out? It was only this expectation that I should follow, like it was my responsibility to tidy up after their choices. And let me not start Lily behaving as like she is too perfect for a typical college life. I stayed in college sharing a small room with a stranger and came out perfectly. I'd finished. I said to her, I'm not handing you one penny. You can sort it out without me and hang up once more. Though worse, it felt like déjà vu. Not because of the money, but rather from sheer entitlement, the total lack of regard for myself, my life, and the limits I have tried to set. My hands were shaking. I knew this was not done even as I hung up. I sensed her not letting this go, as her mother has always been the kind to stay on until she has what she wants. Later that evening, she indeed sent me this lengthy, guilt-ridden text. It was an entire essay on how I was tearing the family apart and how, now that I'm making money, need to step up. Like some sort of prodigal kid, she persisted in talking about how I needed to pay for my sins and start contributing to the family. To tell the truth, it was ridiculous. Though I wasn't falling for it, her almost amazing skill of twisting everything to make me appear as the evil guy was. Years of dealing with her manipulation have made me not ready to let her guilt trip me into paying for something unrelated to me. I so blocked her on everything, including phone, social media, and email, in all its forms. Simply put, I could not stand it anymore, not wanting to wake up every day and wondering when the next guilt trip would strike. Blocking seemed like the only approach to getting some calm. Not easy, though, was blocking her. Though I would want to pretend otherwise, part of me does care about her and what she believes. Part of me still yearns for things to have been different. That perhaps someday Mom will really regard me as her child, rather than a walking financial account. I am aware, but that is not likely. She chose. I chose as well. I still find it hard to understand her nerve level. She has the gall to want me to pay for her stepdaughter's fancy dorm after everything she has gone through, after essentially wiping me out of her life to concentrate on her new family. No, I am not allowing her to drag me back into that situation. Right now, I'm living my own life and forward-looking. I'm beyond the drama, the guilt trips, and serving as their backup when finances are tight. That is on them if they cannot pay for their own bills. That is indeed where I am. I'm not sure whether she will try to get in touch once more, but should she will quickly discover that I am no longer playing along. I have more things to concentrate on than paying for someone else's spoilt child to live in a nice dorm. After blocking my mother, I believed that would be it. My choice made sense, and the continual tension from her calls and texts was gone. Naturally, though, nothing is ever so straightforward with her. A few days later, my phone flashed with a message from my Aunt Karen just as I was beginning to feel like I could really move on. Karen is the only member of Mom's family that has ever truly turned around things. I thus reasoned that she was merely checking in. Nope. Her message was, "Hey, your mother has been constantly phoning me. She claims you have blocked her and she is really offended. She would like to chat to you. You should hear her out, in my opinion." Almost rolling my eyes out of my head. Hear her advocate? In fact, my mom only wants money, Karen, though Karen's always been the kind of person who strives to keep the peace. So I wasn't too surprised she was acting as mediator. Still, it amazed me that my mother had dragged her into this mess. I messaged back, "She's not offended, Karen. She's enraged. I refuse to give Lily money for her dorm." Being Karen, she tried to reason with me, saying things like, "Maybe you should talk to her and set some boundaries." I told her, "The boundary is already set." I could tell she felt awkward being in the middle, so I tried not to let my irritation out on her. "I'm not paying for anything, and I'm done with the guilt trips." She said, "Just consider it, okay?" I said I would consider it, but to be honest, nothing remained to consider. I certainly as hell wasn't about to give my mom the gratification of believing she could shame me into anything. I was not going to succumb. A few days later, I was walking home from work when she appeared, my mother, standing outside my apartment building like some sort of stalker. I never knew how she ever came to know my residence. She might have traced me some other way or acquired it from Karen. She was there either way, and she seemed enraged, as if prepared to launch a confrontation. Not sure what to do, I stopped momentarily. "Really, what do you say when your mother unexpectedly comes up after you have blocked her?" She did not allow me time to consider, though, saying, "We need to talk." She rushed up to me before I could even get my key out. I sighed, already worn out of this confrontation before it began. I almost laughed in her face. "Fine," I responded, "but if this is all this is about, you are not getting paid." She crossed her arms, obviously offended by my tone, and shot back, "I didn't raise you to be so disrespectful." Respect is what the woman who stole my cash, gave her new family top priority, and only calls when she wants something is talking about? I spoke softly and said to her, "I have nothing to owe you. And I absolutely don't owe Lily a private dorm room." Her face contorted into a furious, annoyed look as though she couldn't believe I was really confronting her. "Lily deserves this," she said. I lost my temper at that point. "You are doing well right now and you could afford to help." "Are you really serious?" I back off. "You took my money for college when I needed it. You didn't give a damn about my future then. Now I'm meant to worry about hers?" She tried to cut off me, but I continued. "You hardly even invite me to family gatherings these days. You took my place, and today you believe I will swoop in to save the day when things get tight? Absolutely not. Remember that I am not a member of your new family." She merely stood there, seething but silent. For a moment I considered perhaps I had finally reached her and that she would see how crazy all of this was. But no. So, rather, she smacked me with, "You've always been selfish. I tried to offer you a better life and all you have done is toss it back in my face. It still shocks me." Greedy? After everything she is calling me selfish? I wasn't about to let her rewrite history and project herself as the victim. "You gave me nothing," I answered with a firm voice. "You borrowed from me. You took my time, money, peace. You chose them over me, and today you are living with the results. Deal with it." Then she came closer, trying to scare me, but I held my ground. Her voice frigid. "You owe this family," she said. "Lily owed you. She is your sister, not mine," I shot back. "That was it. I owe nothing to you or her." That was the instant I understood our relationship had no chance of recovery. It was about control as much as the money. Her inability to accept that I had created a life apart from her, that I was no longer under her control, and that I did not need her approval tormented her. She was merely grabbing at anything she could to get me back in right now. Turning to leave, she grabbed my arm before I could. I ripped my arm free, looked her dead in the eye, said, "Good." Then I walked into my building, leaving her standing there in the cold. You never expect to ever be welcomed back. My torrent of emotions started as soon as I entered. Relief, resentment, grief. It felt as though I had at last locked the door on something pulling me down for years. Still, my mother was with me at the same time. The woman who reared me, despite not doing a fantastic job of it. Though the other part knew I had done the right thing, part of me felt bad. I had not left my family. Long ago, my family had left me behind. I came last in figuring things out. Karen sent me a text later that evening. She questioned what happened, thus I gave her the brief account. Karen stated she hoped we might work things out someday, even though she understood and disagreed with my mom's behavior. I lacked the heart to tell her I was over it. Big reconciliation down the road was not likely. I simply told her, "Thanks," and turned away. Since, to be honest, I felt there was no repairing this, and for the first time, I approved of that. I felt for the first time in my life as though I had really put myself first. Though not easy, it was the correct decision. I thought it was at last over that confrontation with my mother outside my flat. I had made myself clear. I had no intention of caving in, and I was not going to pay for anything. Right then, I assumed we had our last major blowout. Errors. Things never seem so straightforward when you have a mother. About 1 week later, I get a call from a number I cannot identify. Usually, I overlook unknown numbers, but for some reason I decided to pay attention this time. I knew Mark, my stepdad, when I heard the voice on the other side. I hadn't heard from him personally in years, so part of me believed perhaps he was trying to settle things. No, he felt exactly as enraged as my mother did. He speaks right away. "So I heard you've been disrespecting your mother." There is no greeting or light conversation. He simply straightforward accusations. I could feel my jaw tighten. Though my inclination was to linger around, my curiosity won out. I wanted to know how far they were ready to travel with this. "Respect or disrespect?" Keeping my voice cool, I said, "I'm not discounting her. I'm just not giving her money." He laughed sarcastically, and I could virtually see him rolling his eyes across the phone. "You believe this is about money? This is family-oriented. Here we go once more. You have left your family and are now neglectful of Lily when she needs it." Though I could feel my tolerance erasing, I remained cool. "Look, I did not desert anyone. Years ago you folks pushed me out. Lily's not my responsibility." There was a pause, and I thought maybe he would finally understand. But naturally, he didn't. "You're selfish," he replied, his voice laden with contempt. "We have done everything for you. How do you pay us back? By turning away Lily and your mother." I nearly let out an audible laugh. For me, everything is. Once their perfect little family was whole, they stole from me, disregarded me, and treated me as an afterthought. I could have it. "You did nothing for my benefit. From me you took. Once you had your new family, you both behaved as though I did not exist. My mother confiscated my funds. And now, unexpectedly, I am supposed to be the one who makes things right? He cut me off just before I could finish. You are no young person anymore. It is time to cease behaving like one. Family is sacrifice. You owe this family. That word, owe, set me off. I owed them not a darn bit. Feeling my patience fall, I responded, no, Mark. Then, I don't owe you anything. I could hear him growing enraged, but I didn't care if anyone owed anything. You two treat me like I was a throwaway for years. I was finished acting politely. I was not the same child allowing them to stroll all over me. I was not about to sit there and let him or my mother guilt-trip me into feeling accountable for their issues. This isn't over, he replied, his voice low and nearly menacing, as though he could frighten me into changing my decision. I didn't bother answering. We are family, and will always be family, whether or not you like it. I quickly hung up, and I felt relief flood over me as soon as I did. It was as if I had at last locked the door on something poisonous. I had set a line, and going back was not possible now. That was not the last of it, albeit naturally. A few days following that call, Lily herself texted me. She was even beginning to participate in this now. Though it wasn't as forceful as Mark's or my mother's, her message still had guilt-tripping in plenty. She penned, "Hey, I know things have been tight, but I really need aid with this dorm situation." I gazed at the message and shook my head. Not sure why you're acting so tough about it. It's just money, and it's not like you can't afford it. It's only money? The entitlement was illogical. She really believed I owed her, as if it were some sort of gift, as if I were her rich uncle meant to pay for every wish. Though I considered responding, honestly, what was the benefit? None of them would have listened. She was not going to either. Each of them lived in their own small universe, in which I was the villain for deviating from their expectations. I so erased the message and blocked her as well. They were obviously not seeing things my way regardless of what I did. To them, family was one-way traffic. While they took and never returned anything, I was expected to give, and I was the nasty person when I denied them what they wanted. The truth is, though, they were not essentially my family anymore. Family should be about mutual respect, love, and encouragement. For me, they neither possessed that. To them, I was simply a tool to help them manipulate guilt into providing what they wanted. Indeed, it ached. I'm not going to pass for it. I once would have done anything to obtain their approval in order to feel like I belonged back in the family. But that time has gone by. Desperate for their love, I changed from that child. I had created my own life. I did not require their approval or acceptance. Over the next few days, I kept considering what family actually meant. One might easily become ensnared in that belief that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, and so on. Sometimes, though, the people who share your DNA are the ones who inflict the most damage. And once that occurs, you have to decide. Since they are family, should you keep allowing them to hurt you? Alternatively, do you cut ties and move on even if it means distancing yourself from the people meant to love you unreservedly? I decided to go away walking. Indeed, it was difficult, but for me it was the appropriate decision. I was not going to let them drag me down anymore. That evening, as I lay in bed, I experienced peace, something I hadn't had in a long time, that I wasn't going to let them utilize. I felt not like I was walking on eggshells, waiting for the next phone, the next guilt trip, the next demand for money, first in years. I was liberated. And to be honest, it tasted absolutely fantastic. A few weeks passed free from more trouble. I was working, hanging out with friends, and simply living my life. For the first time in many years, things felt normal. One day after work, though, I discovered a letter in my mailbox when getting home. Simply my name on the front, no return address. I almost neglected opening it, but something about it seemed strange. So I did. Try to guess what? That came from my mother. Not a card, an apology, or even a standard letter either. It served as a legal alert. She seemed ready to bring me before judges. Over what, you ask? Familial responsibilities. She seemed to be thinking of me as the financially responsible one aiding Lily with her college bills. We are family. Thus, she was trying to position it as some sort of legal obligation, like I was mandated by law to pay for Lily's dorm expenses. I literally laughed out loud standing there in my living room, clutching this ridiculous letter. It seemed like a joke. It was so overdone. But that was not the case. She had actually visited a lawyer, had them create this entire document, and tried to assert that Lily owed some sort of financial debt to her. There was all this jargon about how family must support family, and how I was morally obligated to intervene given my expected success. Success? Fresh out of college, 23 is just figuring out her life and paying her rent. She discussed success like I was sitting on stacks of money. As it is, I'm just surviving like everyone else. But even if I were affluent, it still wouldn't mean I owed them anything, especially not after the way they treated me. I contacted my grandparents, and they were just as stunned as I was. Grandpa was enraged. "You worry about a thing?" he said. "They contacted a friend of a lawyer who told me there was no legal justification for what my mother was attempting to do. We will work this out. Courts cannot support family guilt excursions." A few more procedures later, the matter was resolved completely. Realizing she would not be winning, my mother dismissed her absurd case. Since Mark, Lily, or I haven't heard from her honestly, it feels as though a weight has been taken off my shoulders. For years, I let them run my life under guilt and manipulation. Now, for the first time, I truly am free. Looking back, I'm happy I stayed firm. Though it was difficult to break off my own family, it was the correct thing to do. Family is supposed to be about love and support, not about using each other whenever it might be handy. Though I have no idea what the future holds, one thing is certain: I am never allowing them back into my life. Not following all they have done. Sadly, I want things to have turned out differently. Still, you have to guard your tranquility at the end. Sometimes that entails stepping away, even from the people meant to be loving you the most. And that is okay. On terms, I am moving forward.